Want to bet? You can do it at Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook. Football is back, baseball playoffs, and the hockey season are around the corner. Bet pregame, live in play, or on one of our many prop bets. Made for Canadians, by Canadians, Sports Interaction makes it easy to deposit, play, and cash out. Join now and see all sports betting has to offer. You can head to sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. That's sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. Ontario only, 19 plus. Please play responsibly.
And I wanted to get to them earlier in the week, but we have time to get to them now. But Ryan O'Reilly wanting a new deal in St. Louis doesn't seem as if he's that concerned about when that contract will come about. But I believe he will be an unrestricted free agent next summer. What are your thoughts on the Ryan O'Reilly dossier?
Well, the Blues in the past have made difficult decisions on players like Ryan O'Reilly. If you go way back, it was David Backes who left via free agency and was the captain and a long time sort of key member of the team, and then Alex Pietrangelo never got a new deal and done in St. Louis and went on to Vegas. And, he was a captain who helped the team win a Stanley Cup. Ryan O'Reilly, that doesn't guarantee that they'll do the same with him. But I think, what it tells you about Doug Armstrong is that he's not afraid to make a tough decision on a player kind of at that iffy part of the career where if you're committing long-term and big money to, there's certainly some risk of, about the performance tailing off or injury risk, what have you. And so it'll be an interesting one to watch. I mean, this is also a summer where, Jordan Kyrou, Robert Thomas have signed, pretty big extensions with the Blues. And so you can see the next sort of generation popping through now and we'll see where everything lands with O'Reilly. I think that he'll be a player in pretty high demand if he ends up being a free agent next summer. And I think the fact that he's comfortable with where he's at is a good thing. I mean, he's earned good money during his career. He's had lots of success, and he's played on a few teams. So I think he understands if it's not St. Louis, that he'll probably find a good landing spot eventually. But it doesn't sound like there's any reason to expect anything happening imminently there. And ultimately, we're in a hard cap system. Every team ends up making difficult choices as a result of that. And, maybe that's what the Blues will have to do when it comes time to make a final call on what they do with O'Reilly.
But hey, the salary cap is supposed to be going up at least by $1 million next year. And it looks as if it could be going up by a couple more $1 million if the estimates from the NHL are to be believed.
Yeah, it's basically locked in that next year will be $83.5 million. The players are still repaying the debt to the owners from the pandemic. Basically, the terms of that is if revenues are over a certain threshold, which, the league should comfortably, hit, that it just goes up by $1 million. So we're $82.5 million ceiling this season. Because the debt will still be being repaid, I would expect $83.5 million next year. And then it's the year beyond that where we expect a sizable jump to take place, tied to revenues again, which is, the way the old system worked before the pandemic turned everything upside down. And so, that looms as an interesting idea if you're, going to be signing a new deal. Austin Matthews will need a new deal in that context. A couple of years after that, it'll be Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, lots of high-end players will be coming up for new contracts with that sort of being part of the thinking. And, should finally maybe open some things up around the league. It's been a difficult couple of years of transactions because you just have so many teams at the cap ceiling. I mean, it's basically half the league at this point is doing some sort of dance with the salary cap. I think that'll get a little bit easier when it gets a jump. And, maybe it's only 3 years from now, you see $90 million cap and above. That's, I think some good days are on the horizon, Julian, is the best way to put it. I've been told we've seen, about 12 teams unveil sweater ads at this point with the patches on their sweaters. I'm told that the most expensive of those deals is somewhere around 10 million for a season. This year we're not going to have 32 teams, and some teams are doing partial ads, like the Montreal Canadiens have just ads on their home sweaters at this point. Other teams, I think, will maybe sell ads during the year, so it won't be full deals. But it's not hard to project down the line, say a year or two beyond this one, where all 32 teams have them. All those ads are sold for somewhere between 5 and 10 million a year. You're looking at a couple $100 million created out of thin air that goes to the hockey related revenue, which benefits the players and owners equally. Will help pump the cap. You've got a 32nd team in Seattle. I think it's actually, we're getting to sort of an exciting time for the league that everyone had to sort of weather a storm financially for the last few seasons. But I think there's some excitement league wide that you're actually going to see the cap jump. Players are going to start earning more money. And of course that means owners are putting more money in their pockets too.
To quote J. Cole, my intuition is telling me that there are going to be better days. I love the fact that you mentioned the fact that we're going to see better days on the other side of the other side of the horizon. I know you meant that in the context of the salary cap, but I like to think that works in the real world context as well. One last thing I want to mention too. The Anaheim Ducks say they will not discuss new deals with Trevor Zegras, Jamie Drysdale, and Troy Terry until the end of the season. That's 3 young players who are expected to be part of that Ducks nucleus for quite some time, and they're all super talented. Do you think it's a good idea that Pat Verbeek wants to wait until the end of the year to make a deal with those 3 players?
It's a bit of a calculated risk, right? I mean, if they have even greater seasons than they've had before, that it gives them sort of a wider range of players to include in the comparables when it comes time to make contract decisions or negotiations. Pat Verbeek though is fairly new on the job there as a general manager, and not even a full year into his tenure. And so I think he's taking a bit of a wait and see approach with everyone in the organization, not wanting to jump into any decisions, feeling rushed by those sorts of timelines. And so yeah, maybe they end up paying them a little bit more as a result, but maybe he learns something and ends up trading one of them. I mean, I think it's hard to know at this point in time. The Ducks, I think, are getting on the right track with where they're headed, but it's been a few seasons of wandering around the abyss. And so sometimes you have to draw that line. I mean, the Leafs, for example, I think back kind of famously, they let Mitch Marner play at the 3rd year of his entry level contract. He pops for 90 points or whatever it was, and has a better case in negotiations to get the deal he got. But sometimes players struggle in that platform year too. There's not one way it goes, and so I would call that a calculated risk, and one where you really have a front office that's still getting to know its team and probably doesn't want to jump into any of those contracts circumstances without a full picture. It's a little easier, say, for Pierre Dorion to sign Tim Stützle a year out because he's been around the development of the kid. He knows the player. He's seen the way things are trending. I think that it's easier to do that when you've been in the job a few years, and Pat Verbeek, can't go back in time and be there when those guys were drafted. So, I would say that that's probably informs the approach, and, they'll be comfortable paying more money if they have to, because it'll mean those players are even better than what management thinks today.